We need such a letter these days. The summer is drawing to a close and Ingathering Sunday is on the horizon. And this is my last sermon with you as your summer minister. There's been a kind of thread running through these Sundays. I don't know if you noticed, but it was sort of laid out for me in a way, starting with James Luther Adams' 5 Smooth Stones of Religious Liberalism, which represented a kind of core of our faith tradition for generations and remain essential to us as Unitarian Universalists today, even as we continue to refine and redefine and interpret them. And those 5 were an openness to new truth, freedom, justice, our human agency, and hope. And through these 10 weeks, also lifting up practices and attitudes that we might adopt and practice in these challenging times, that we strive to comfort and support one another. There is still so much to do. And for many, there is still so much pain that sometimes it's hard to see a way forward. And all we can do is set out and keep going. So there's a book titled We Make the Road by Walking: Conversations on Education and Social Change by Myles Horton, the founder of the Highlander Folk School, now the Highlander Research and Education Center, and Brazilian education theorist Paulo Freire. The Highlander Folk School in Tennessee was founded in 1932, focused on organizing unemployed and working people. By the 1950s and 60s, it became a center and an incubator for civil rights, working to end segregation. By 1987, it had evolved to work to support ever-widening causes to develop grassroots organizing. Around then, Horton and Freire joined together to write a book. It grew out of a series of conversations that attempted to capture the essence of the historic work that the school had done at the intersection of education and social change. By way of background, Horton's approach was grounded in the small local grassroots education model exemplified by Highlander, locating itself squarely outside of the schooling systems of the United States. Freire's method was centered within the university system and state-sponsored programs of his native Brazil. So vastly different sources. In their work, they had come to similar conclusions, though, that real liberation can only come through participatory education, where people learn and act together. But their starting points and their situations and communities were so vastly different. In the conversations they had, they were working without a firm agenda. They knew where there were some theoretical issues they wanted to get to, and an idea of what they wanted to get across. However, they just couldn't get started, and they couldn't see a way to get where they thought they were headed. So like we all do when we're faced with such situations, they started to make lists of what they needed to cover. And then they tried to prioritize those lists. And they kept at it, but they seemed to get no closer to their goal. They didn't arrive at that important conversation they both felt they needed to have to get their message across. And when I read that, I imagined a room full of newsprint paper covered in colored markers and phrases and words and littered with Post-it notes. And you all know how daunting that can be. So Freire challenged Horton and said, yes, everything you recognize as something important. I think that even though we need to have some kind of an outline, we surely make the road by walking. I imagine that when they needed to winnow the list, Horton was reluctant to let go of certain ideas and thus kept them from getting to the work at hand. And I've been there too. No doubt some of you have also, where everything that needs to be done is something important and everything must be attended to, especially now at this crucial time in history, with all the challenges and transitions and needed changes we face in our society and the needs of our own personal lives. So many things clamor for our attention and need to be prioritized. Each idea, each thought, each task is so very important and worthy. So we may not be sure which way to turn and what to do next. Choosing where and which and how proves daunting. We can kind of see the way ahead, but it's not clear. We may have a firm, but still a little vague idea of where we want to go, and there are several important items that will require our attention. But we need some kind of path to get us to our destination, our goal. No elected leader or professional can get us the exact perfect plan. That is something we must do together. I think that even though we have some outline, I am sure we make the road by starting out. The source of Freire's statement comes from the Spanish poet Antonio Machado. And it's almost as if he is speaking to us right now here. Just as his words called Horton and Freire out of their writer's block, the words call us to brave the unknown, inviting us out of any boxed-in corners we find ourselves, out of impossible places and worrisome situations. Machado frames it this way in his poem. Wayfarer, the only way is your footsteps, there is no other. Wayfarer, there is no way, you make the way as you go. As you go, you make the way, and stopping to look behind, you see the path that your feet will never travel again. Wayfarer, there is no way, only foam trails on the sea. Wanderer, another translation says, your footsteps are the road and nothing more. So when we get anxious about the way ahead, of all that has to be done, or get anxious about when we will have the answers, or that the election is going to result in a new way forward and to end oppression. When we get anxious about all of that, it might be helpful to know that as important as the end point is, the road, the path is our focus right now. I do believe the path becomes clearer as we begin to move forward, to take steps, to roll, to move in whatever way we will take our body forward. Right now, for us as individuals, for our families, for our children, for our grandchildren, it is important that we keep going, that we build and nurture community, that we keep widening the circle, deepening the conversation, and strengthening the commitment. But precisely, which way is this road going? So, yeah, I kind of get it. We are the ones making the way forward, and it is all up to us. But I think there is more to consider as we venture forth. We don't want to trudge or stumble forward unperceptive to anything that is around us, and inadvertently arrive in a thicket of brambles and thorns. Nor do we want to veer off in separate paths, each going our own way, hoping that somehow we will arrive at the same hoped-for destination. Whether we go north or south, east or west, or some combination of these cardinal directions, we need to be ready to notice what we encounter along the way and who our companions are. To take it all into account, to be comfortable with ambiguity at times, to be willing to take the turns to keep moving, to keep making progress, to perhaps even find a way to delight and revel in the mystery that is before us, and enjoy the surprises along the way. To recognize when we stumble or fall, or make a turn that needs to be rethought and reconsidered, and we have to retrace our steps and start again. That in all of this, we will keep moving together, finding our way. And we need to keep faith with our companions in this journey. We set out and make the way even if the path is not totally clear, even when there are obstacles that we must remove or maneuver around. To do this well means we need several things beyond a good compass. Most importantly, we need each other. We need to trust one another. We need to have a common understanding of where we are headed, if not exactly what the destination looks like. We need a common, or to understand and embrace the fact that the path may be quite different than what we expect. And we will have to be okay with that. And we will be aware that we may disagree on individual details about what we need to carry on this journey and how we ought to equip ourselves, or maybe even about precisely where we are headed. Yet we will move out onto this path anyway. Wayfarer, there is no way. You make the way as you go. Even if we just can't see the way forward. But we know there is something of great importance, something critical that must be dealt with, that seems way beyond our control or influence. We will go. And even though we may be unsure of the outcomes, and we see there are risks, to be sure, as there are in any worthwhile endeavor, we will go. The path may not lead to what we thought or we wanted or needed. The wanderings may be an indirect route to understanding and meaning, even if nothing is clear or forthright. We will go. But no task can be completed or accomplished, no adventure or journey begun, unless we summon up the courage to begin, unless we recognize our companions in the journey. Recall the reading Brenda shared just moments ago, which petitioned our better angels to intervene and help us make our way. Reverend Dennison also imagined a response to that letter. And so I'm going to ask Brenda to share that response with us now. A letter from our better angels.
Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands that you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate, and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You also are not wrong. And when you encounter the broken, the poor, the unhoused, and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling to you, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world first, be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free.
It will be free. It is our choice to embrace this wisdom, and so we shall. We go forward. Choices and decisions made, detours traveled, and being human, we will look back. The path that once perhaps seemed invisible is revealed. The past behind us is instructive. When we look back, we may feel rueful, regretting some choices here and there. And we may feel justly proud of how and where we have come. We can feel encouraged to continue on, even as the path remains clear, or becomes rockier, or even dangerous. We might take heart from knowing how far we have come, what roads, hills, valleys, rocky and smooth we have traveled. But I want to remind you that about something else on this road that you may have noticed, that we are not alone. So yes, be tender, be kind, be at peace, be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. As we go forth from our separate yet connected places, may we bless and be blessed. Take with you an honest mind that you may know yourself, a sincere affection for people that you may know others, and a true devotion to the just causes that you may be known. And so our worship today is ended. Let our service begin. Our closing hymn is an invitation to that journey, taking us along in spirit and confidence and joy from the Teal hymnal number 1018, Come and Go With Me, brought to us again by Jerry Brown and Jonathan Long.